Well, this is my last episode of Freedom before I'm forced to play a Phoenix game as tradition demands. This episode was actually planned out before the game's release date, but the game was unfortunately delayed so many times that I almost gave up on the video itself. Now, to bare my soul to you right off the bat, I had some technical issues making this video. My first attempt of a visual recording of the game is a garbled fucking mess, and I had to play through this game twice to get all the footage I needed. I'm afraid this means that all the weird shit that I described from my first attempt won't have visible evidence to back it up. Because, well, there's no evidence, it's got destroyed. I'll have little evidence to show for a lot of the claims I make, but I hope that the last 22 episodes have proved that I don't just make shit up. I hope that I've built up the reputation as somebody who doesn't make shit up, because I don't have to make this shit up. Hell, I couldn't make some of this shit up if I tried. I also want to tell you that even on my second playthrough, after giving this game a second chance, I didn't make it to the end of the game. I didn't even make it to the end of the first act. I know that sounds incredibly unprofessional, but considering that I couldn't even make it to the end of this fucking game without giving up, and I've played shit like Girl Zone in the past, I can't see myself playing this piece of shit through to the end anytime soon. Hopefully it'll still be fun for all concerned. Hunt Down the Freeman is a Half-Life 2 mod that was released as a full game. This might sound a little odd, but it's not exactly the first time they've done this. Black Mesa was another example of a game that was released as a full product, and it's not a bad idea to allow talented modders to get paid for the services and be rewarded for creating good enough quality games that they can earn money for it. Games like Dear Esther, The Stanley Parable, and even They Hunger were originally Half-Life mods. These games were either sold or could be sold as a commercial product. Any of the above four examples I would actually be happy to buy as professional products. Say what you like about them as games, but they don't feel like Half-Life 2 mods when released on Steam. They have their own look and style, and are therefore worthy of being on the Steam store. However, because Valve doesn't believe in quality control, this idea has gone to complete shit, like Steam Greenlight for example, and Steam Direct, and trading, and cards, and pretty much everything else they fail to moderate. Hoorah! Now shit like this exists on Steam. So, the game starts off with these cutscenes, sounding off with a gunshot, and depicting some dead guy on the floor with a kid crying next to him. I have no idea what this is about. I guess he's been separated from his brother after their dad committed suicide. That's my guess, and considering that the trailer has the character say Adrian.
Adrian?
Name dropping Adrian Shepard from Half-Life Opposing Force in the trailer as a means to entice us, my guess is that this kid is Adrian Shepard, and that this is fanfiction and the main character, Mitchell, who is either God or a gift from God, is Adrian Shepard's brother. Oh, here it comes the jump scare. Oh shit! Fuck me! By the way, that whole gift from God thing, those are the game's words, not mine.
Who are you?
Mitchell.
Mitchell, huh? Yes, Mitchell. A name with many meanings. For some, the meaning is a gift from God. For others, who is like God? Which one are you, Mitchell? Are you a gift from God sent to save us? Or perhaps you are God himself, come to doom our worthless lives?
Perhaps.
Anyway, you more or less get dropped into Black Mesa right away, and you have to fight off a horde of zombies. It's interesting to note that there were more enemies than zombies in Black Mesa. If you look at the screenshots for the original Half-Life or Black Mesa as a game, you can see that there were a wide variety of enemy types. Considering that a lot of this game takes place during the Black Mesa incident, it's a bigger problem than you'd think. If the opening was Black Mesa and the rest of the game took place during the events of Half-Life 2 or a few years after the Black Mesa incident, it wouldn't be worth mentioning. I'd get it. They wouldn't actually recreate the enemies or buy the enemies just for one scene. But bear in mind, the first act of the game takes place during the events of Half-Life 1. As a result, the only two enemies in this game are the Combine Troopers, who look like... that, and headcrab zombies. And I don't think that there are many headcrabs independent of their hosts either, come to think of it. Which is kind of weird. Anyway, you fight your way through Black Mesa and then Gordon Freeman turns up to fuck you up. Now, this Gordon Freeman model has been replaced at least 3 times. In the screenshots of the Steam store page, he doesn't have his helmet on, but in the game he does. I've actually heard what the ending of this game is, and if the ending that I've been told is the true ending, then it makes more sense. But it's still inaccurate, as Freeman never wore the helmet in the original game, except arguably in the Zen chapters of the game. It's also quite interesting that if the ending that I heard that this is a different guy to Freeman is true, then why the fuck does it show Gordon Freeman in the promo in this exact same scene?
Sergeant Mitchell in the flesh. Or rather, his remains.
Like, that's just lying to us. Like, what the fuck? I also find his assault on Mitchell to be rather out of character. I know that Freeman had whatever personality was assigned to him, but at no point did he brutally kill anyone in this manner. Like, at all. Yes, he could beat someone to death with a crowbar, but it was never as dynamic or contrived as this. It wasn't like the Doom guy in the remake where you just see his disdain for literally everything as he makes his way through it. Freeman was just fighting to survive at all times. Even if he had a sadistic streak, depending on who's playing as him, he couldn't do this, so it just seems a bit off. Again, the ending that implies that he wasn't Freeman does make this make more sense, but again, the promo material says that it is Freeman, so I don't know what to go off of. This is what happens when you lie in your promotional material, if you have. So you get hospitalized and wake up in front of the G-Man, who is in this, of course. Now, the G-Man is another case where it really feels like fanfiction. His character makes no sense, like at all in this game. His interest in Mitchell is based solely around the idea that Mitchell was bitter as he got beaten to near death by Gordon Freeman, and that he'd kill him the next time he got the chance.
Yet you are still here. You should have just died there, but here you are. You've proven yourself a man of rare conviction. But even this does not impress me as much as the words you speak. Whatever it takes, whoever it takes, however long it takes, before I die, I will kill you. Is that right? Well, you see, Mr. Mitchell, we cannot let you kill Dr. Freeman yet. They authorize me to offer you a deal. You will be rewarded with authority, power, and time. The only payment we ask when the time comes. Keep your promise, Mr. Mitchell.
I don't think G-Man was ever impressed by bravado. He had a slight guilty pleasure for those who survived against all odds, but this guy wouldn't have survived if G-Man hadn't intervened. Well, assuming that it is G-Man who's intervened. In fact, Mitchell would have been another dead dumbass Marine, so why does G-Man have a fascination with him? Oh right, yeah, it's because he's God. Or a gift from God. Or whatever. One thing that I find funny, which I noticed on my second playthrough, was G-Man's logic for keeping Mitchell alive. You see, he tells Mitchell that he doesn't want Mitchell killing Gordon Freeman, which is fair enough. He wants to make sure that his investment stays alive. So, to do this, he strikes up a deal with Mitchell to prevent him from doing so. It sounds fair enough, but there's a major problem. Mitchell's survival was most likely down to the G-Man to begin with. If it wasn't, I don't know how he survived. I don't know who saved him or what happened there. But the G-Man could have ensured that Mitchell was beaten to near death in the facility that was later nuked by him. Yeah, Mitchell could have died and his body could have been evaporated in a nuclear bomb, ending him forever. But instead, the G-Man saves him so that he can strike a deal with him to prevent him from doing something. This has really fallen apart, hasn't it? Even if someone like Adrian Shepard saved Mitchell, G-Man is still an invulnerable ghost. I'm very sure that he could enter Mitchell's room, deactivate his life support, and then just let him die to protect his investment. Fuck, he could even put a bullet in his head and then just teleport out the room. Bear in mind that this isn't like Gordon Freeman where he offers him a job, or Adrian Shepard where he dumps him in limbo to prevent him from telling his side of the story to the US government. He actually sees Mitchell as a threat in this game, as he's having to bargain with him, bargaining off wealth and power when he could just easily kill him, or even ignore him, as he doesn't really pose much of a threat in his current state, and he would pose less of one if he was dead. The impression of G-Man that the actor does is also incredibly off. Several pronunciations are off and the writing isn't very G-Man-like. He's way too open and specific about what he's trying to say. G-Man as a character comes across as a barely human entity who sounds very uncomfortable with speaking, as if he's in pain or not speaking in a way that he's used to. And he's also very focused on his work. He keeps his cards close to his chest and is very vague. No matter how open he is, he likes to keep his subjects in the dark as much as possible. He has his own personal preferences, however, given that he chooses to trap Adrian Shepard instead of just killing him for knowing too much, but this is a side of him we only ever see once. I feel as if this is the kind of G-Man dialogue and impression that we'd get if a 13-year-old fanfiction writer was in charge of the project. The voice actor isn't ideal. If he was a mod voice actor, and he was the best you could get, I'd say okay, fine. I mean, Half-Life Redemptions wasn't 100% accurate, but it did the job. But this is a paid product. I kind of would have expected either the actual voice or someone very close. I was recently playing Entropy Zero, and the Vortigaunts in that sound just like the ones from the game. I have a sneaking suspicion that it's not the same actor, but I really had to think on it quite a lot in order to figure that out. Both me and my friends did, because we genuinely thought that the actor had reprised his role as a Vortigaunt, but honestly, we don't even know now. We're just guessing it's a really good impression. At first, I thought that the G-Man in this game was played by DC Douglas, who's actually quite a famous video game actor. It wouldn't actually have been a terrible choice, because he does sound a little like him.
Last, I shall become the #1 Boglin boy.
I think he could either pull off a good impression or put his own spin on it in an interesting way. But no, I was wrong. It's just Rick. Which Rick? Dunno. Could be all the Ricks combined for all I fucking know. The final thing about this scene that I find funny is him saying, "Now this is where I get off."
In the meantime, this is where I get off.
This is a callback to Half-Life 2, so it's not just random, but it makes no sense contextually. You see, in Half-Life 2 it makes sense, because in the opening you're on a train that was trapped in a limbo dimension, and in the end G-Man gets off the train, and it implies a lot of things, that you kind of put back on the train until you're ready to be saved by a group of aliens.
In the meantime, this is where I get off.
When said there, it implies that this is his stop. This is where he leaves you on the train to go to his true destination, whilst you wait to go to yours. Here, it sounds like he's gone off to have a fucking wank. All of the rooms outside are locked, by the way, so yeah, that's my best guess. He's gone off to have a wank. There's no other explanation. This is where the game actually kicks off, and you're thrown into it pretty early. You have no weapons, and more or less have to avoid zombies. You can't fight them, which makes this kind of interesting as an opening, but I have no idea where the fuck I'm going. The zombies in this game don't really look very good. They actually remind me of the 2004 graphics that Half-Life 2 had in its promo shots. They look really shitty basically, and they look somewhere between Half-Life 1 zombies and beta Half-Life 2s. Anyway, you run past all of this, and about halfway I noticed an office where I went to investigate it, and there I found a keyboard with that pink texture that means there's no texture, and that guy who committed suicide in the passing DLC of Left 4 Dead 2. I guess it's time for me to address the stolen asset elephant in the room, huh? One of the things that this game is getting a lot of shit for was the abundance of stolen resources. As far as I'm aware, you have access to what's in the Source SDK, which is Half-Life 2's content, and that's more or less it. Even Gary's mod, which was the first mod to be sold on Steam to my knowledge, not counting Counter-Strike, as an actual product, it actually required you to have games installed before you could use their assets for the most part. However, these assets from Left 4 Dead 2, Gmod, various Gmod mods, various other Half-Life 2 mods, Black Mesa, and possibly other games sold on Steam are just, well, used. I don't think this is actually allowed, and from what I gather they don't have permission either. Even if they did, this really doesn't look professional. Every time I pass a Left 4 Dead asset, it just makes me realise that I'm playing a Frankenstein's monster of random source game assets. Normally, if I'm playing a game, I want a majority of the assets to be by the developer. I want new maps, new things to interact with. Kinda like Dear Esther or the Stanley Parable, where everything looks and therefore feels different. Even as a mod, there is artistic cohesion in these games. They just use the right consistent assets from Half-Life 2, and it works because of that. However, in this game, you have assets made in 2004 coexisting with assets made in 2008, possibly newer assets, and it means that what you're looking at is incredibly detailed, incredibly shitty, or incredibly awful, which is, oh look, hello dead girl from Left 4 Dead 2. Hello Left 4 Dead assets. Wow, you guys look so 2008. I'm still back in 2004 when this game was made. New assets are damn near impossible to identify. Everything from Gordon Freeman's model to the weapons have seemingly been taken from other places. There are original pieces of work in here, the character models have their own unique look to them, and I kind of appreciate that for better or worse. There's some pretty talented AI programming in some parts, and if it was a free-to-play mod, I'd actually be genuinely impressed by some things. But it's not. It's a game being sold on Steam for £16.56, and that's at sale price. Hey Marine, I served just like you know. Well, not just like you, because I actually did something in the field. What team are you part of? Delta Squad? Actually, I don't give a fuck. Die. After getting out of that room, I found myself in a predicament. Before me was two tables stacked on top of each other with a narrow gap on top and on the bottom. I tried crouching, but that didn't do it. I was still too big to fit. It took me about half an hour, I think, of looking around trying to find some alternative route that I might have missed. And bear in mind, there are like 20 or so zombies following me, so you don't get a lot of time to think to solve this. Eventually I found out that you have to go prone and crawl under the desk or over it as I did. Now, you might be wondering, why didn't I think of this sooner? That's because I've been playing Half-Life since I was 13, from the very original. I've played everything with the Half-Life name on it, including Half-Life Redemption, which is like this, an unofficial game that is much better made and wasn't sold as a fucking product on Steam, even though it could be, as it's made perfectly fine. There are a number of things sort of thrown into this game that regular Half-Life players will be baffled by. Like, for example, in the original game, you have a flashlight, which is occupied with the F key. In Opposing Force, you have the night vision goggles that work exactly the same way. In this game, however, they treat night vision goggles as weapons that can only be equipped by pressing their corresponding item slots. This isn't a problem in itself, but this is why you need tutorials. If you're changing the rules that have been established for 20 years, you need to tell us this. Somebody was having a fucking camp with a Left 4 Dead generator. Fuck you, you killed Bill. The next bit has us run into I Hate Everything, who's got an emo streak about him now. One thing that this game has going for it, one of few, is the fact that a lot of the voice talent was offered by YouTubers. Now, I'm more familiar with some of these YouTubers than I am others, and therefore I'm not too sure about most of them. Like, I'm not sure if they're talented voice actors or not. I will say that I Hate Everything is good at voice acting some characters.
Oi! Did you leave a fucking laser blast on some random planet? Those things are expensive, you know? Yeah, but there was a plane flying nearby, so we couldn't risk being seen, innit? If you don't go back and get that laser blast, I'm gonna take it out of your naked turtle alien paycheck. Fuck, fine. Oh, God, let's go.
But I think he's fitted more to comedic roles, rather than serious ones like this.
It's been just 2 hours. First 1 big portal appeared, then 10, then 100. The best thing is to get the hell away from them.
What about the army?
There's no more army. No more military. We're the only ones left.
I could imagine him better as a sphere in Portal, or some sort of role similar to that. Maybe it's because it's one of his first gigs as a voice actor, at least one of few that I'm aware of. Or maybe it's because the dialogue in this game is fucking dreadful.
They're human. Well, look who we got here, boys. A Black Ops and a Marine. Hoorah. Let me introduce myself, son. I'm Colonel Q, but you can call me Sir.
But I feel like this wasn't the best casting choice. There are a number of YouTubers who can voice act exceedingly well, such as Ross Scott or Jim Sterling.
You fools! How could you let that moron progress so far?
He came in unnoticed!
I should never have trusted a dog, especially a talking one! Guard! What are today's survey results?
Well, sir, while our propaganda campaign is having a slight effect in the beta sectors, 73% of the known universe still characterizes your butt as tiny.
Maintain the brainwashing, and summon my military commanders to the conference room. We must see if this invasion can be stopped.
I feel as if the popularity of these YouTubers was sought more than their voice talent. Also, you had a chance to have Ross Scott voice Gordon Freeman, and you didn't take it, you bastards! So I Hate Everything informs you that the military is dead. The first thing he says, and it's a fucking lie. You see military dudes all over the place, and even in the later chapters you see actual military strongholds. There's ranks and a chain of command. So I Hate Everything is talking shit. Oh hi, I Hate Everything. You're full of shit, you lied. You said that the fucking military was dead. You lied, you sack of shit. You know what, right? You should put yourself on the search for the worst, because you're the worst. I mean, hi.
Alright, Joe. Let's save your friends from spiders with vaginas.
As you get outside, you realise that you've been thrown into the 7-hour war. And I admit, a game about the 7-hour war is interesting to me. I haven't actually seen this done before. It could have been done as a mod, but I haven't seen such a thing happen yet, especially not in this sort of style. However, the 7-hour war That terrible final war where everything devolved into fucking nothing during the course of several hours and it pushed humanity to subjugation. It was actually just a bunch of these motherfuckers pouring out of portals and the military just kicking the shit out of them. Seriously, at no point do you feel like you're losing in the battle, except when your US Army buddies try taking down a combined strider by throwing grenades 3 feet in front of them. Shits are so funny because they keep throwing grenades 2 feet in front of them.
Light that shit up!
I love that they have fucking combine grenades. I'm gonna kill this guy before he hurts anyone else. Protect and serve, you know? The AI is hilariously stupid. They just sit there as you stab them to death. I wiped out an entire platoon of dumbass Marines, and not a single one of them fought back. I mean, I can't say I blame them. I mean, they live in Hunt Down the Freeman, so I wouldn't fight back either, but, you know. I mean, would you want to live in a world where this is a thing? I mean, just look at that! It was coloured in with the Garry's Mod colour tool, for fuck's sake! To my memory, anyway. So, yeah. This is a thing in the game. I showed this to a 14-year-old and he actually pissed himself laughing. I work at a school and I showed this to a kid after school and said, "Kid, what do you think of this as a game mechanic? Like, as a fucking prop in a game?" And he just burst out laughing. He said, "How is this a fucking thing in a game that you get charged money for?" And I said, "I don't know." And he said, "Do I get an A now for agreeing with you?" And I told him to fuck off. Anyway, some of these vehicles are ripped straight from Half-Life 2. And the state that they're in pretty much says that they had their wheels removed, were seemingly left out in the rain for 20 years, and probably crushed by falling equipment during a massive war. Man, that must have been one hell of a car crash. Going back to the dipshit AI, I think the worst AI is the companion AI. In the obligatory avoid the minefield section, as seen in Half-Life 1 and 2, where you had to avoid a bunch of claymores as you slowly navigated a room, I found myself massively hindered by the AI. After some trial and error, I actually made it to the end, only to realise that I was stuck. The escalator in front of me wouldn't let me go, there was some sort of invisible wall there, and I couldn't interact with anything either. So after walking through the very difficult puzzle, and I mean walkthrough, in the most literal sense possible, I mean, it was actually funny how little of a fuck I gave as I went back and treating this minefield as you would a messy bedroom, only to discover that my AI partner was hiding in the girls' toilets, presumably sniffing the seats. I don't mind him having his kinks, but can he do that in his own fucking time? It turned out that I actually needed him to advance, so I had to get across on my own, only for him to literally just run through the minefield without setting any of the mines off. Jesus fucking Christ. I mean, this guy's supposed to be a fucking Black Ops specialist. How did he manage in the field? That killed me. Now, you might be wondering, how is that able to kill you? Good question. So I got to this army base and there's this guy there with a tash who just sort of yells things at me. I took the opportunity to get some more ammo by killing everyone in the room who could be killed, which was fine apparently, nobody even reacted to it. Then President Keemstar informs us that everything is fucked, and we're surrendering. For now.
Commander-in-Chief, it is with a heavy heart that I'm informing you that we have made a strategic decision to surrender to the alien invaders known as the Combine. Right now, this is the best chance.
I love this because his speech is basically, we're surrendering for now. It's like, yeah, I'm pretty sure the Combine can hear you say that.
Decision of my life
yeah, we're gonna rise up and we're gonna kill them. Okay, I don't think it's a good idea to actually say that again and again when you're, you know, declaring that you surrender unto a way more powerful force.
Core values and everything we hold dear. Yet, the fact and hard truth remains that we lost this battle for now. And believe me, we will live to fight another day. We shall return. God bless you, and God bless the United States of America.
The United States of America. I love how he says this, like he's assuring us that we're surrendering for now, but then we're gonna fuck the Combine over. You are aware that the Combine can probably hear and understand that you plan to do this, right? I know that a highly intelligent alien army would probably guess that you had this up your sleeve, but you could at least pretend that you aren't planning to fuck them over, and could at least try to avoid giving them an excuse to wipe you off the face of the planet. Anyway, we get a train out of New Mexico, and this is where things just went to shit for me. The idea is you're supposed to protect a train from incoming gunships, but that's not what happens. You get a minigun from a guy who literally falls from the sky. This guy fucking appears out of thin air and drops it right in front of you. Who is he? I don't know. Where did he come from? Fucked if I know. I'm serious. He fucking teleports right before your eyes and crashes into the floor holding a minigun like that scientist in Half-Life Opposing Force. I really would have found it funny if this was you from the future and it was some sort of Time Splitters Future Perfect kind of dealy, but sadly not, no. You take his minigun and stand on top of the train, but make no mistake, you aren't here to save the train. You're just here to waste time and watch it burn until the game decides that it's ready to move on. I literally spent 20 or so minutes shooting down Combine gunships, which are made out of paper mache in this game, like everything else, only to realise that I could have just quit earlier and just gotten back in the train. I should probably mention that enemies do not work like they do in Half-Life 2. Combine Hunters, for example, who are a major threat in Half-Life 2 Episode 2, where they make their debut and even have a chapter dedicated to having to fight them, they're just overglorified turrets in this game, and they die in a dozen or so hits. I mean, let's just forget the fact that they are versatile, intelligent, and the first time that Gordon Freeman encounters one, it fucks him and his partner up. Back to the train thing though, you have to stop doing this around the time that the train gets completely destroyed, minus the driver's cabin. At this point, you jump down into the driver's cabin and advance the story, but you're not told this, and therefore you can forgive me for not thinking of it. After seeing the entire train getting destroyed, and knowing that the cabin being destroyed would most likely mean game over for all of us. It's this part of the game where it stopped feeling like anything that I should be paying for. This is unprofessional even for a mod. For a start, it's buggy as all fuck. I fell off the train by accident at one point, and I ended up moving at the speed that the train was going, and more or less just ice skating alongside it, just shooting everything, until I got left behind, and more or less spent 10 minutes seeing how far I could get before I died. The second thing that really annoys the shit out of me is the complete lack of communication with the game and its player. Half-Life normally requires you to figure stuff out on your own. However, when you do face situations like this, an NPC at least briefs you on what you're about to do and why you're doing it. Here, it's just a shitty guess. You never know if you've completed your objective or not. Nothing tells you this, and you're just left carrying on doing the same things over and over again until you realise that you could have stopped 5 or so minutes ago. The node graphic is constantly needing to rebuild pretty much after every map loads in, which just damages the immersion for me. There are so many rookie mistakes that this should not be classed as a finished product, and it should certainly not be sold on Steam. It even did the invention thing where instead of cutting to the next area, it just faded to black and left me in limbo. Nice game design you've got there. I'd actually lost all patience by this point. I was so annoyed that I couldn't see myself doing anything like that again. At this point, I'm dumped on top of a vehicle, and I honestly thought that it was going to make me do a rail shooting turret segment. That's when I quit. Now, I am going to give this game credit and say that it wasn't a rail shooter turret segment, because you actually got to drive the fucking car, but it's still a turret segment, so fuck that. I've played through a lot of shit, but this game is so broken, so boring and frustrating, and lacking in any fucking common sense that I can't deal with it any longer. You know that it must be fucking dreadful if I didn't want to replay it to get the footage, and I had to more or less force myself to do so. Everything bar the music, which I actually think is pretty nice. If it's an original composition, which as far as I'm aware it is, I might actually buy the soundtrack, as it's not far off from being as good as Black Mesa or Dear Esther in terms of quality. However, the story is pretentious fanfiction. The animation in the cutscenes is god-awful, and the gameplay is boring most of the time, and it does my nut in the rest.
I found some, and now I can get the fuck out of here. Oh, that one's stuck in the fucking...
This is my chance to go.
My chance to go. But my legs have been broken.
It's so fucking dreadful that its funny moments are quickly overshadowed by the fact that you have to wait for an hour for something to happen, or from the fact that you have to reset the game to get the cunt to actually work. The amount of time I'd spent waiting for this game to load, I could have played a game like Way of Hero and beaten it, because that game only takes 10 minutes to beat. Part of me really wanted this to be good, as it's been 5 or so years since I've had a good Half-Life game, and I wanted that again. What I got was Hunt Down the Freeman. I honestly think this game might be forgivable if it was a free mod, and it could attract other developers to work on it, and then once it was good, they could put it on Steam. They could get some people to reanimate the cutscenes, and even work around the writing. But it's a finished product on Steam, it's not even in early access, and therefore, I just can't commend this. Honestly, I think Invention is better than this. And I'm planning on bollocking the developers of that game, but hell, at least those games are more functional than this shit. They reuse assets from the Unity store, but at least they have the right to use those assets, and at least they are able to cobble together something that's of the quality expected for a shitty Steam game. Also, it's like £1, so it's cheaper as well, and more or less the same quality as this shitty fucking game. Due to how bad Steam is right now, it's hard to say how bad of a product this is. 10 years ago, this would have been the worst thing on Steam, but right now, this might actually be one of the better shitty games on Steam. Which is tragic for the state of Steam, but fuck it, Valve don't give a shit, so why should I? This game feels like an Icarus scenario, where it was so arrogant during its development that it kind of assumed that people would love it off the bat. Duke Nukem Forever did the same thing, and critics just hate things that do this all the more. In all honesty, I do see potential here. I think with a stronger team, with better writers, and map makers, and some better game design worked around player feedback and reviews, this could be something good. This isn't a case of something that lacks effort or has no right to exist. Hell, I'd say that it's quite clear that a degree of passion went into this game. But none of that matters if the game is a fucking mess. The best word that I can describe this game with is broken. That's what it all boils down to. If this was generic and shit but worked fine, it wouldn't be as bad. But it's so incompetently put together, and considering how great campaigns I've seen in Left 4 Dead, like Suicide Blitz and Questionable Ethics, work as their own products, it makes me wonder why this was picked as a product good enough to be sold on Steam. This game feels like it was made in months rather than years, and you need years worth of work in order to make a fantastic game like Black Mesa or No More Room in Hell. There's few original assets, you can actually escape the game in certain places, and in every scene I find something that's just broken or just not right. It's like the kind of maps that I used to make when I was 14. This just doesn't belong on Steam. It should be taken down and taken back to the drawing board and evaluated. More people should be brought in to fix the things that don't work. Like, instead of hiring YouTuber voice actors, hire some YouTuber source filmmaker animators, so your animation doesn't look so stilted and awkward. Instead of stealing assets, hire someone that knows how to make more, or at least get the rights to buy some that we aren't so familiar with. Get someone talented at map making to polish up your maps, and for fuck's sake, make some sort of tutorial, even if it's optional like you get in Half-Life 1. I would genuinely love to see this game come back as something better. Something that makes this review obsolete and everything I've put into it worth it. And if that happens, I'd even re-review it. However, in the game's current state, I wouldn't even recommend it to someone as a joke. It's a broken, pretentious mess in which any potential was just squandered by the head designer's desire to see it on Steam before it was actually ready to be there.
Oh. The game crashed.
Alright, so I was going to end it on that slightly optimistic note, but there's two things I need to address that I only since found out after I wrote this script, and they're not worth disassembling the script to talk about. The first is that the developer claims that the wrong version of this game was uploaded to Steam, and that's why it's a broken piece of shit. This is like the alpha build or something. Now, this is a load of bollocks, and here's why. I know what an unfinished game looks like. Like, for example, Black Mesa. The first time they released Black Mesa, it had placeholder title chapter names, where it was called hashtag chapter 2 or something like that, instead of the actual chapter names. And certain items had different names, some placeholder models were still being used, but the game was still very functional. Now, this game on the other hand has all of the finishing touches done to it, but is full of problems. Full of them that I know would not be finished even in the most fixed and up-to-date version of this game. Like, are they telling me that they added an invisible wall to stop you walking off the edge of the map or even seeing over the edge of the map? Are they telling me that they actually made it so that the game didn't crash at certain points? Was that train section fixed in the original version that apparently only exists on their hard drive? And also, why the fuck are you still selling it on Steam? Why aren't you discouraging people from buying it? Fucking bollocks. And finally, apparently the guy who made the game held this game back for literally no reason. You know all those delays I talked about at the beginning that made me almost give up on reviewing this shit? Well, apparently that happened for no reason. They just did it for publicity or some shit. Well, you know what? It actually made me less interested in the game than anything. It amused me that this titanic game of yours kept being held back, but when it actually came out, I gave so little of a fuck that I almost didn't play it at all. So, congratulations on that front. And honestly, the more this developer opens his mouth, or the more that comes out, the more I wonder why Steam is allowing this jackass to sell his games. Like, fuck's sake, Valve, sort yourselves out.
What the fuck?
Sergeant Mitchell in the flesh. Or rather, his remains. This is where I get off. No!
Welche Kirsche bei Brüchen.